Oh, no. And I thought, wait a minute. That's just God over there and God in here. And I said, yeah, come on, sit down. And I thought, I hope this prayer doesn't last long, because the person was pretty big, and I knew my legs would go. And as a matter of fact, the prayer was, I started it, and then we were praying back and forth. And he'd pray, and I'd pray, and we were just like one person carrying on a conversation. And it isn't like the prayer that you'd normally think people would pray, but it was for us. And I said, I think what would really be nice is if maybe I get to kneel on the floor and you can sit in the chair. And he said, oh, that will be okay. So he got up, and I couldn't get up. I just kind of slid out on the floor, because the legs were gone. And I mean, when I say gone, you know, I looked down there, and the feet, I couldn't move toes, nothing. So he said, how long do you think this will last? And I said, I'm not really sure yet, but I'll let you know, because I didn't know how long it was going to take to come awake. But as he started looking, he stood there and he says, I have to confess something that I'm hearing inside of me. I have taken your teachings and I've twisted them and I've corrupted them and I've abused them and I've used them on people. And I said, wait a minute, how can you be saying positive out of a negative mouth? He said, there's something inside of me that is just telling me that I've got to come clean with what I've done, or I'm going to dream of concentration camps and brutality and grotesque things forever. And he says, that's enough. And he just went on and on and on. And he said, I am not going to do that again. And I said, well, don't tell me, tell you. Because you're always telling people things out there, and you're going to do it anyway. And so he just went back inside, and he put his hands over his heart like this. And I could see in his mind, and he was going, I'll never do that again. And then he went like this. It's like see no evil, hear no evil. And he was touching places in his body where he felt that the life of him, who he was, had stopped. And he was just touching it, and he was saying, why did I get this body if it wasn't to do those things that I did? I said, well, it was to do the things you did, but you didn't have to do those. That's one of the options. But there was another option called using the body to have the soul have the experience in through this world and see God in all of its manifestations and keep the body pure and clean. He said, I remember you've talked about that, but I didn't think that's what you meant. I said, right, see, the thought takes the teachings and corrupts it for what it wants it to think it to mean. You understand the idea? It'll turn and twist, and then it wants to get an audience to prove that that's so, and they lie. Because you don't need an audience to prove anything. The proof of the pudding is in the eating, and the proof of the spirituality is going in and eating of the life stream, the light of God, of eating of that spiritual energy. The nice thing about it, the people that go into the heavens see into the hells and see the real grotesqueness of who a person is. And they see that how that person has twisted themselves inside psychologically and just messed up themselves until their faces are grotesque and their bodies are grotesque, and they turn from it and come back into the kingdom of heaven where they're serving and being useful as a kingdom member. And they have joy, and they also know that the other way leads to a path of hurt. And what about those people that are down in hell? Are they lost forever? Well, I don't know if they're lost forever, because forever has never been defined. Are they lost for an eternity? Yeah, just an eternity. How long is that? We don't know. Because 2,000 years ago, a great master walked across that bridge inside, from the spiritual into the negativity, from the kingdom of heaven to the Father into the fortress of hell, and bridged inside of himself and all beings the ability to turn from darkness into light. In the midst of hell, there is salvation. But the illusion is, in hell, you don't know it. And there are those people on this planet who would subjugate other people and put them under their thumb and make them do what they want. And those people reside in hell and get others to join them. And there are battles in those purgatory situations. And they do exist. And they exist as purification devices, because God is still merciful. Even in that 11th hour, it says, fight it out and get it over with. And in those areas, it's like people slink around in dark places, and I'm going to call it the evilness that has come out of them because of what they've done in the world. It tags after them when they leave here. And it circles around them, and it takes on strange forms, and you don't know who you're talking to. And as soon as you start to come into being right with you, and that means right with God. And I guess that means right with God, go where God is, and right with God inside of you, meaning you're not wrong with God. The blessings that are already present and have been eternally, because God created all things and said, it's good. And then said, I will give you will and thought to do as you will, and we thought the worst and it happened. We know that what we think takes that energy and puts it into the thought. The Bible says, what you fear will come upon you. As a man thinketh in his heart, he becomes. And I'm here to tell you, that's so. But you don't have to die to know that. You can know it by being an alive, sentient being of mother, of father, and practice going in and penetrating further and further in past all the junk that you've got on the surface layers. Some people close their eyes and go in, and their mind says, get out of here, you can't be in here, you got to go do the washing, you got to go downtown, you got this to do, you got that to do. And you're saying, I don't know, I just can't, I give up. What have you give up to except your opportunity? Then you sit out here in the thought and judge everything as how terrible, bad, and wrong it is, and you haven't gone in to get the key to the kingdom. Well, what is the key to the kingdom? Knock, knock, knock. You have to be able to knock at the door. The funny thing of it is the door doesn't swing in, the door swings out. So when you knock, you also have to step back and let the door open. It's called relax, let go. It was translated originally, let go and let God. We just say, relax, be patient, but be sure you knock. In the movement of spiritual awareness, that knocking is the sacred name of God that knocks on the door of the vibration where you have now grown accustomed to be, because you're able to infuse yourself with this spiritual light. Here's the good news, and here's the bad news. It's always been here. Then we go, if it's always been here, why didn't I know it? You haven't been listening, because I told you why. Because you thought that and went that way. Now, here's where we get a chance to say, well, I am living in the will of God, and my wisdom tells me, and attempt to use this information to make right the manipulation, and you corrupt yourself even more. In fact, it's better that some people don't hear of spiritual things because they use them to their own downfall. And I found out a long time ago that the Father of Lights, God of us all, brings people into the movement for reasons. And those reasons may or may not be made known. And sometimes people come in just to feel they're okay, and to know that regardless of what their feelings and their minds tell them, that it's not okay, they are okay. And they have to work on the okayness as well as they've worked on the not okay part. Most of the time,